This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Yeah, surf the beat cause the bass is bubbling. Gotta get it in before it comes tumbling down. There's only so much time to find this kind of rhyme to express my mind. Cause everything that has ever been made will eventually fade like the money we made.
Welcome once again to the CageCast. I'm your host Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey Mozz. Okay, tonight's episode. Season 2, Episode 3, Wig Out. Worried Luke is headed down a dark path. Claire pays a visit to his father. Bushmaster makes a bid for Mariah's gun. Director is Mark Jobst. Writers, of course, Archie Goodwin created the character, along with George Tuska. Our created by credit for the series is Chio Hidari Coker. And Matt Owens gets our written by credit this week. Okay.
Maybe my favorite name of all time aside from my own, Chio Hidari Coker.
It's a good...
He sounds like a supervillain, doesn't he?
Oh, I don't know if I'd call him a supervillain. I don't know. Coker?
It almost sounds like the Chitauri to me, or the Kree combined into one name, you know?
I mean, it's entirely possible, yeah. I can see where we're going with that. I think that's just how some people do names. I don't know, man. I am not going to comment on the exactness of other people's names, Mozz.
Well, I mean, my name sounds like a supervillain. I think that's pretty cool. Mozz Manzor, you know?
Yes, but I'll be honest with you. Let's be honest, Mozz. All the real supervillains, all old white guys.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah, you know.
At least the ones that get to survive the episode.
Okay, and speaking of people who, well, they survive, but maybe not as much as you'd like. Cockroach.
Right.
The name he prefers, incidentally. Yeah, we open up and he has gotten the tar kicked out of him, which is a good way to open this episode considering how we end the episode.
Indeed.
But we do see, you know, a beaten and bloodied cockroach who was, you know, in Luke Cage's defense, beaten on his girlfriend and kid. So, you know, we're not going to cry for him, Argentina. But still.
Right. But the look in the little boy's face, it's not like his situation was remedied too greatly, you know? He's still scared, he's still confused, and he's still hurt.
Well, exactly, because it's like you don't solve trauma with more trauma,
right.
You know?
Right.
When someone's dropping bombs on you and then someone comes in and drops a bomb on the guy dropping the bomb on you, you don't go, boy, it's a good thing you came in here with that big bomb.
Right.
You know, it's like, oh, more violence, you know,
right.
Because, not for nothing, the poor kid, he's learned to associate life with violence, and all he's really seeing is, oh, here's another violent man coming into my life. And this guy just beat the tar out of the guy who normally beats the tar out of me. How much tar is he going to beat out of me now? It's like some kind of crazy math problem, you know?
It's like Jeopardy where you get a bankrupt.
Yes.
And then, when you lose a turn, and then you get a bankrupt after that other person's turn.
Yeah, that's actually Wheel of Fortune. But yes, I don't know if you can hear what Tristan is saying, but it is that math problem that, you know, Cockroach, you know, beats his son for 1 hour every night. Luke Cage just beat Cockroach for 2 hours tonight. How long will Luke Cage beat the Cockroach's son? It's, yeah, at least that's the kind of math he's doing in his head, and it is dark and sad and horrible, because, like I said, trauma doesn't solve the previous trauma. And, of course, fortunately, Misty shows up on the scene, you know, where she's not supposed to be.
Well, yeah, but that's because Claire is there taking care of the situation and watching out for Luke.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is everyone's trying to watch out for Luke, because for a man with bulletproof skin, he is getting himself into a lot of trouble.
Right.
And I believe this is the episode where I think Claire makes the point that he's just like Matt.
Yes, indeed.
And he's like, I'm nothing like Matt, which is, because everyone knows Matt's crazy.
Right.
Just like of the whole group, everyone's like, yeah, Matt's the crazy one,
But
at least Danny's rich enough to get away with acting all the time.
Right.
But
But it's interesting. There is a power vacuum there that people don't realize how much of an effect he had on the city until he's gone, and now everybody's scrambling to fill his shoes and recognizing, man, Matt was a beast.
Well, he was, I mean, he was the man without fear. That is literally why he gets his own show. Fun fact: we're getting The Devil You Know back in September.
Woo-wee.
So we're gonna try and get through Luke Cage as fast as we can, because I mean, Matt is not waiting. Matt is right behind us. Netflix is doing a very aggressive schedule right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've got to get a lot of stuff in before Disney does their whole thing with Hulu, right?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know the status of the Netflix accounts. It might be also that they're doing it because they're marking their territory. Yeah. It's one of the truths of it that these companies have an obligation. They have to produce product, or they lose the rights. That was the whole thing. That's how Marvel that's how Marvel actually got Daredevil back in the first place. Yeah, because Fox didn't make another Daredevil film after Matt Damon's film. Well, not Matt Damon's, Ben Affleck's film. Basically, eventually, Fox just said, we're not going to do it, and that's why Fox did go out and make another Fantastic Four film, because they were about to lose the rights. And of course, the best Fantastic Four film is the one that never got released, but that was also actually just created so that the studio wouldn't lose the rights. So, yeah. So I don't know if it's a rights issue, if they're just trying to build out their content and build out their brand while they can. I'm not quite sure what the relationship is with Disney and Netflix right now.
From what I've heard, I mean, I think the Netflix shows are going to stay here, but all the PG-related shows are going to go over to the Disney streaming service, and I think Deadpool and the new Deadpool TV show that they're talking about is going to be some sort of joint deal with Hulu, because they own Hulu now.
Yes.
So some of their properties will be on Hulu and some will be on their own platform. And I think they're offering like a special price to get Hulu with the Disney and ESPN for a certain price, I think, which sounds kind of nice.
Yeah, I just have no use for ESPN, but that's fine.
Well, no, but that's interesting, because the people who are interested, the UFC will solely be on ESPN now, and a lot of their programming will be on the ESPN the ESPN streaming platform. So for a person like me who loves Marvel and the UFC, that's going to be a big deal.
Oh yeah, that'll be great for you. And personally, my biggest complaint about the UFC is that there aren't enough characters. So there's this great old school kind of wrestling move in a fight scene coming up where zombie powder is used. And for those who don't remember, who don't know about real old school wrestling, you would have a character, and one of your characters might be a voodoo man, and he might use zombie powder to defeat the opponent. And we get a nice taste of that here. So, but that's later.
Oh, have you seen the Vice documentary on the zombie powder that they use in the Caribbean?
No.
It is monstrously scary.
Yeah.
It's like this powder they create from some plants that makes you a suggestible vegetable almost. And like these shamans in, the Caribbean islands have been known to use this, and some women have been known to use this. What they'll do is they'll lure a guy in, spray this powder in his face, and he becomes ultimately suggestible, and then they just have him walk over to the bank and empty his bank accounts to them, and they wake up the next day going, what did I just do?
Yeah, there's a couple of herbal remedies like that, and not for nothing, we do have our deadly nightshade introduced in this episode, or maybe it was the previous episode. I'm a little, all these episodes do run together for me, I will be honest with you, but we get our Tilda Dillard, not Tilda Johnson, but that comes later anyway. We'll get to that. But Tilda Dillard, Mariah's daughter, and it does. There's such a aspect of the Luke Cage mythos that does sit in this idea of family. When you think about season 1, it was very much the story of Cain and Abel, and really makes you feel for Cain. You know, and I think the best stories always make you say, you know what, maybe Cain had a point. You know,
Right.
One of the most interesting things in Supernatural, where they brought Cain and Abel back, was just the fact that yes, Cain murdered Abel, but Abel went to heck afterwards because Abel was actually pretty much a big jerk. You know. Cain has to wander the earth for all eternity, and Abel went to HE single hockey stick, if you will, because he was a horrible person. Because in the end, now of course Luke Cage doesn't want to be a horrible person, but you do wonder, and I think one of the things one of the ideas we're coming into in this story is, again, get a little bit biblical on you. We're kind of doing the story of Samson here. Where I think a lot of what we're observing is this idea, for those who don't know the story of Samson, Samson was gifted by God with amazing superhuman strength on the idea that he never cut his hair, because this is a thing, this is where you get that whole idea where a lot of, especially interesting aspect when you get to the Rastafarians, why they don't cut their hair. This comes
and so do not the Sikh people of India. They don't cut their hair either, and they feel like it's sort of it helps you connect. It's almost like antennae or something that you're connecting to the spiritual world. I hope I'm not misquoting that, but it's some sort of thing that it helps you communicate with the universe.
Well, what it is, it's. I mean, in the original,
so it's a powerful. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's something that ties to certain ideas in the what's the word I'm looking for, in the original biblical passages. Sikhs, of course, actually are a religion that does draw from a lot of other local religions. Although the avoidance of haircutting is not unique to the Old Testament. For whatever reason, I mean, the idea that, God put hair on your head, you should let it grow, is the thing that's out there. I don't know why, but it is. Basically, people will often, honestly, I mean, I'm going to wax a little bit atheistic on everyone right now. Is that I think every so often you got one shaman who had a little bit of OCD about something. And that got to be like, okay, no, that's the rule, man. No, Shaman Joe said we don't cut our hair, so we can't cut our hair now. Because Shaman Joe had a weird thing about getting his hair cut.
Maybe he had a weirdly shaped head and he didn't want people to know.
Yeah, or maybe he's like my kids and they just don't like getting their hair cut. Well, actually, you're better than Ben, but Ben has a real hard time sitting still for a haircut, And hey, it's always existed. People have always had that kind of thing, and I think every so often someone gets put in that position of power in a society, and they decide that God doesn't want me to have a haircut. So as we're dealing with the Jamaican culture and not really voodoo, which really I don't think is as associated with Jamaica as it is with Haiti, but it is an interesting quality, and we do get a little bit. They talk about the Maroons in this, which of course were these people that had broke away from. They were basically runaway slaves in Jamaica who had who lived up in the mountains and did guerrilla warfare on the British until the British eventually said, we're tired of being an empire, and went home, as they do. Anyway, moving right along. So in this actual episode, things that actually happened in this episode, we do have a real falling out with Luke and Claire
Temple.
Claire Temple, as well as I think to some extent Luke and Misty is also having these problems. I mean, Misty's still kind of got her hero blinders on right now, but I think that those are starting to fade too. Because she is getting in trouble with this, because she is letting a perp. She's like, Luke Cage is not a perp. It's like, yeah, he is. He broke into somebody's house and beat the heck out of somebody. And not for nothing, it's not like Luke Cage is just some dude ran in off the street. He is literally a lethal weapon.
Right.
And I think Claire makes a really good point in this, which is that, well, it might have been Misty, but I think it was Claire, that, he knocks people out with, like, tap on the head all the time.
Right.
That you want to subdue a guy, Luke Cage, you don't have to beat him. Cockroach is not a guy you need to beat.
Right.
But he wanted to beat him because he wanted to teach him a lesson. And
That
this winds up.
and maybe I think she's trying to point out that he doesn't recognize where his own motivations are coming from at the moment because he's so being pulled in so many directions. She's like, recognize who you really are. You're forgetting who you are because of all these extra factors from the outside. But that really wasn't you. You don't even know why you beat that guy. It was simply because you were frustrated at everything else in your life and it bled out there. And that's what she wants him to notice so that he can get back to recognizing the core of who he is and not lose that.
Yes. And although I guess maybe there is maybe even a deeper quality there of maybe that is who he is.
Well, yeah, that's sort of the struggle he's going through right now. Who does he need to be? Who does he want to be? And where do those two, contrarian pulls meet?
Mm-hmm. And it is one of these aspects of it because, of course, as Freud said, you show me the boy, I'll show you the man. We are getting some of Luke's actual childhood in this with his father and the rejection his father placed on him.
And now he's placing on the other way around.
Well, yeah, but it's sort of like this weird thing where his dad is like, he's saying, hey, I took you to the zoo that one time. It's like his dad just feels all should be forgiven because he's back and he's his dad.
Right, and like I guess because he's a religious figure, so he's afforded extra leeway. I guess I don't know.
I guess so. I mean, I think he's barking up the wrong tree there.
Right, he's like, hey, look, I made peace with God. Who are you to deny me?
Well, not for nothing. If we actually go to the Bible, and Jesus is asked, how many times must I ask forgiveness from my brother? Do I merely need to say it 7 times? And he says 7 times 7 times. He's basically in that moment, Jesus is saying, just because you say you're sorry doesn't make it all right. And not for nothing, Luke Cage's dad, real jerk. Yeah. So as we were saying, Luke Cage's father is guilty of his own crime as well.
Right.
In the final analysis, Luke Cage's father doesn't really deserve the forgiveness he's being asked. But Luke, because, not for nothing, the guy is directly responsible for all the troubles that Luke has suffered through.
Right.
And yes, Luke got bulletproof skin out of the deal. It's one of these interesting things. Yes, Luke Cage got bulletproof skin and got all these superpowers because of all the things that happened to him. But, in the end of the day, the trauma of it that he's gone through has not necessarily been a fair trade, at least I think in Luke Cage's mind.
Well, yeah, that, and it left him with a whole host of other problems to contend with that he wouldn't had he not had these powers. And now because of it, he has these issues of identity and issues of controlling his powers, and it's causing him to not be able to maintain relationships and to not have a good enough handle on who he is and who he's supposed to be. They say with great power comes great responsibility. Now you burden him with that responsibility as well. Now he's got to parse through that.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, I think we're also seeing the basic Hulk paradox, or the problem with the Hulk, which is you have this strength, and when you have this strength, you can use this strength. Now, the question that you have as a person when you have this strength is, what is keeping me from using this strength to get my way? And we see people telling Luke Cage this repeatedly throughout this season. One of the things is like, if I had your powers, what I would do. And we see this with his friend, like, oh, you got to get paid, and
Yeah.
And there is this idea that Luke doesn't want to be a superhero. He has a similar issue that Jessica Jones has, but I guess more Christian-y.
Also,
You
I think
know?
he's just waking up to those questions, whereas Jessica's been dealing with them for many, many years now, and she's sort of like
Yeah.
a well-worn, disgruntled superhero, you know?
Yes. Well, I mean, in all of their cases, there are people that they have suffered these traumas.
Mm.
They have come out of these traumas with these powers, but that does not remove the scars of the traumas. And as we said, when we look back at, I assume that was Cockroach's kid. It might be he's just somebody. It might be somebody else. Might be the baby daddy there, but
Right.
that kid, he's going through these traumas now. Maybe because this is the Marvel Universe, because he went through these traumas, something else is going to open up for him. Something is going to trigger something. He might get to be the first mutant. He might get to be whatever. But that's not going to erase the trauma. It's like, as an example, you can win the lottery. It doesn't mean all your problems go away.
Right.
It's going to make a lot of problems. It's going to make some problems go away, sure. But what next problem you encounter is going to be based on who you are, not what happened with the lottery. And, I watch the Beverly Hillbillies a lot because it's on MeTV and that's on broadcast. And, there is this idea of the people that suddenly find themselves with these powers.
Mm-hmm.
And, and of course, wealth is, of course, the greatest superpower of all. But when you're also filled with all this trauma, how you're going to interpret those superpowers is going to be very different than someone who gets this power and simply says, well, I guess I'll just, do nice things with it, because I can. But of course, every time you do a nice thing, then suddenly someone else needs you to do something, and then someone else needs something else, and then suddenly these powers become a burden, and suddenly now you experience trauma because you have powers.
Right.
So there's no easy answer, unfortunately. But one of my favorite scenes in this, of course, we've really only talked about like the first couple scenes, but one of my favorite scenes in this is where we get the big gang fight on Luke Cage. Luke Cage, because essentially, to just do a quick rundown on what happens, because we've had some technical difficulties this episode. We see Luke standing over a bloody body. We see Bushmaster waking up with like two women in his bed, because
who kind of look like they might be mother and daughter, didn't they?
I don't know. I'm not going to make that assumption.
All right.
And it's entirely possible, man. That's rum and Coca-Cola, man. You ever hear that song, Rum and Coca-Cola?
No.
Oh, it is an Andrew Sisters song that is basically about Jamaican women and their daughters sort of double teaming GIs.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's subtle in it. But it's about these. Honestly, it was originally, and maybe that was meant to be a subtle reference in that. And it's funny because, of course, it's this really catchy song. It wasn't originally done by the Andrew Sisters. It was originally done by some reggae team, some reggae band or some reggae singer who was basically bemoaning the fact that Jamaica, these. Both mother and daughter are working for the Yankee dollar, bringing these rum and Coca-Cola to these soldiers on leave in Jamaica. Wow. Yeah, and then but the Andrews is just like, it's a song. It's got the soldier in it, girls in it. Yeah, we'll sing that. Sure, why not?
Right, everybody loves the troops.
Yeah, everybody loves the troops. But yeah, it's one of those songs. Look it up online. Look up Rum and Coca-Cola as the song, and you'll find the original version. You'll find the Andrew Sisters version. Both are very good versions, and the Andrew Sisters, honestly, they sell it. And not for nothing, when you're listening to the Andrew Sisters version, I don't think they sugarcoat it in any way. Because not for nothing, these were women performing for the troops. The troops knew what working for the Yankee dollar meant, so. I think they just make it much more of a celebration of, girl getting her own kind of thing,
Wow.
Maybe, yeah. But so you might have picked up on a very subtle item there, Mozz, that me in my just naivete did not pick up on.
Yeah.
But as we move forward, we find out that Arturo Reyes is dead, and this is, I think, there's so much that happens early on and that comes back to cause problems, and so much of this is just the fact that Shades kills Reyes. For such a petty reason, and how much of this whole story is then pushed forward because of that one boneheaded move.
Right.
Granted, Reyes was in a tough spot because of what happened with the gun, and certainly Shades needed, really Mariah needs the money.
Right.
And it's just an interesting thing that I think that in many ways, as things progress, Shades is being the hothead here, and we're not used to Shades being a hothead.
Right.
And when he tries to regain composure, when everything else starts to spiral out of control, everyone is like, he's going to be judging everyone else, but really all of this is because he decided to be a hothead at this moment. But as a result of this, he, Bushmaster sees the opening, because let's be honest here, there were 3 people that were up for this gig. There was Cockroach, who had his little side thing to get the line in on the Hammer contract. Interestingly enough, in this, one thing I don't think we even mentioned in the previous episode was how much there was as Mariah will later say, well, not really a color struck aspect of it, but this people of color judgment and negativity that you see here, where Cockroach is trying to say, hey, we need to be, you need to keep Harlem with our kind of black people, not Jamaican black people or Cuban black people.
Right.
And just really saying, I'm one of you guys. Of course, Mariah didn't buy that. She was going to go with Reyes because Reyes was the best deal. He was the most established guy. And then freaking Shades puts a cap on him, and now everything's going to fall apart. And because of this, now Bushmaster has this chance to move in as the one guy with money to provide.
Yeah, I think the other aspect of it is they're trying to drive home the point of Shades' loyalty towards Mariah as being a real thing and not a play at something else. Because in the end, when the shady dealings happen with the deal Mariah makes, he seems to be the only one that sees the danger in the way she's orchestrating her future,
Well, yes, and certainly that is an aspect of it. But again, it is, Shades' view was we shouldn't get rid of the gun business.
Right.
Mariah's view is I want to get rid of the gun business because I don't want to be a gangster anymore.
Right.
I want to get clean of this life. And well, that's, a fair cop. Honestly, I think that's a fair cop. I think that Mariah, at the start of this, Mariah has a great arc this season.
Oh, yeah.
I think that Mariah's arc, and I think Shades' arc is very much his own undoing. Basically, I think Shades throughout this season is going to be basically undermining his own best interests.
I don't know. I sort of see it as like Mariah trying to inject herself into a situation where she will never be accepted as one of them. And Shades sees that future already and is trying to make her see the light that, look, where you are isn't that bad. The kind of power that you can have, that we can have, isn't that bad. What I'm pitching to you as our life together isn't that bad. And she refuses to see it because she's just sort of been driven wild by the promise of being one of the, not the low people,
Well, yeah, and I think that there is definitely a quality to that, but then again, I think there is this other aspect of it of maybe for her that, I am of two worlds.
Ah.
And I can't, I will never really be accepted as a gangster. And we see that in the way that all the gangsters speak about her.
But aren't you supposed to hate the boss, Like.
Well, no, but I mean, they see her as someone who took
Cornell's?
Cornell's, yeah. I was trying to remember what his nickname was. I want to say it was Sidewinder, but I could be mistaken on that. Cottonmouth. So many Serpent Society references. That she basically usurped Cottonmouth's standing based on Shades, so that everyone sees Shades as the power behind the throne and do not respect Mariah. So Mariah is like, these guys don't even respect me. I don't really like what I do. I want to be freaking Hillary Clinton. I want to be this respected political figure. And, I don't want to be stuck in this world that, yes, my family comes from. But just because my family comes from this doesn't mean I want to be in it. And by contrast, Shades is like, well, you can say, well, they won't ever accept you, in the, the paper bag test world of people. But, quite frankly, she's not accepted in the underworld either. So it's like where she could be, if she could get her legitimate money somewhere, that would be better, And I think that this conflict is, I think one of the big conflicts in this is this idea that there are these people who have these ill-gotten gains, who dream of legitimacy, but who are always being thwarted by other powers that be. I mean, this is very much a familial struggle, and there is very much a question of who is going to wind up on top, who's going to wind up, the man on top of the hill, as they say, which I think we get to in the next episode. But in this episode, we do get to see our Bushmaster. He's studying the tapes, seeing how his guys basically got beat up by Luke Cage, trying to determine Luke Cage's weaknesses, and we see him taking his little super soldier formula, as it were, to gear up. It's interesting to me how there is sort of a low rent parallel to the Black Panther tale. Of this guy who feels he is owed something, coming to the hidden kingdom of Harlem's Paradise to try and claim it.
Wow, yeah.
And I think that's really what we're seeing here. And of course, we get to see this at the end when Luke Cage, who after he loses his temper, after he puts his fist through a wall, which of course is one of those moments that is like, you really cross that line there. That is, it's not quite a Hank Pym accidentally slapping Janet Van Dyne for one panel kind of a mistake, but it is a mistake that as close as you can get without actually having him lay hands on Claire,
right?
To say, okay, you are not someone that anyone can have around, be around right now. There's, oh man, when we get into this later thing, there's so much. I don't know if you've ever seen The Godfather or The Godfather Part 2, but there's a lot of qualities that are going to be going on in this series. Because I did finish the series, so I do know how it ends.
Okay.
Because I got to get ready for a Daredevil, man. This is my only podcast, Mozz.
That's the one series where I don't think I'll be able to stop myself from binging in one night.
But this thing gets so great at the later episodes. And I think there is a point in the middle here where you probably do, as often with these Netflix shows, where you feel like, why don't they just go to this denouement? Why don't they just cut to the end? But I think that, because you do this struggle through the hill of climbing the mountain, I think getting to the end is much better when you get to that end. But anyway, any final thoughts on tonight's episode?
The one thing that was kind of interesting to me was Colleen and Misty training together
Oh,
and
yes.
having such a difficult time of it, and then all of a sudden she gets to the bar and beats up 4 dudes with no problem. I thought that was a little,
Well, I mean, obviously, well, first off, Colleen is, Ninja Master Colleen. She is a former member of the Hand, a former
Right.
Hand assassin kind of character, and Misty has got some real BA protagonist armor.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's an interesting thing. There's a mixed martial arts fighter named Nick Newell who has one arm, and he's been, running circles around people in local circuits, and the UFC never wanted to give him a chance because, God forbid, something happens to him, they'll be held liable for letting a one-armed guy into the UFC. So finally, I think it was 2 weeks ago, they allowed him onto the Contender Series to fight. And, as one would expect, when you face tougher competition than you have been, that one arm is a severe disadvantage as much as it might be an advantage in certain situations. And so, to have her go and just take out 4 guys, it's just like, I was like, all right, come on.
Well, and what I'll say is, first off, and what it is, it's about. So, I'll give you another MCU example. When you see Doctor Strange, and you see him complaining that it's really hard. My hands are damaged. I can't make these hand manipulations correctly. I can't create and then the Ancient One goes to Random Dude number 3 and says, brother Random Dude, show him how it's done. And you see that guy only has one arm, but he moves his stump and the portal opens. Because what Colleen is trying to tell Misty here is that you need to connect beyond yourself. And of course, Misty's like making a joke of it and like, ha ha ha, oh my, doesn't even want to try. So what Colleen does is she takes her to an environment where she does feel comfortable, where things are going to get out of hand. And because she knows once things get out of hand, those reflexes, that ability to see things are going to kick in for her.
Right.
That right now she can't because she's focused on what she's missing, not what she has. So when and not for nothing, she struggles. I mean, it's not like she really just wipes. I mean, these are two. I mean, honestly, yeah, it's hard to say it for Misty because she's she's a beat cop, but you know what it is. It's like Die Hard.
Right.
There is no reason some random cop is going to take out an entire arsenal of terrorists who've seized the building, except that he just doesn't know he doesn't know, like Steve Rogers, doesn't know when to stop, doesn't know when to stop getting back up, and Misty can do this all day.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're trying to say in that. So,
I mean, the other thing that I found interesting was when Claire went to see Luke's dad, and she genuinely asks, a pastor or reverend or whatever he is for advice. And he turns around and says, hey, what do you think you should do? And then she goes, hey, thanks for that advice.
Well, not for nothing, no one can give you advice.
Fair enough.
Advice is the one thing no one can actually give you. You can take advice, but you can't be given advice. And so when you say, well, what do you think is the right way to go? When someone says that to you, what it is, like, you already know what the right thing to do is, and whether or not it is the right thing to do, no one will know until you actually do it, because every choice has a million other unintended consequences.
Right.
So, you can do the right thing and be pilloried for it, or you can do the wrong thing and be praised a hero, or vice versa, and there's no way to know until that moment happens, because there's so many other factors that are in play. I really liked her going to the father in that scene, because it is a moment to try and force humanization on the father, and it does show why, I guess, arguably, he is a good pastor. For all of his failings and faults, he is good at his job, and I think that is one of the things that maybe we struggle in with this idea. We get in this a bit of Scarf's legacy. And there is this very interesting question of Scarf was a bad guy, but was he good at his job? And yes, Scarf did plant evidence, but that does not mean all the evidence Scarf had ever planted, that Scarf planted all the evidence that he found. But of course, when you have those sins, it's very hard to forgive someone. And Scarf very much was on the take, and very much did kill people, and very much was a guy who went down the wrong path. And I think maybe this is something that we're setting up with Luke here, is he going to go down that wrong path?
Ah, yeah.
Is he going to make the same mistake that, when you are a cop like Scarf, and you start off that you want to be a good cop, and then you see the limitations of your power, and then you decide to make that one first choice to maybe bend the rules a bit, and then what does that mean for everything that you do from then on? Does anyone trust you ever again?
Right, because it bleeds in and taints everything that you've done.
Which is, I think, why Matt wears a mask. And I think Luke even mentions that, and I kind of understand why Matt wears a mask now. Because suddenly everything in his life, there's no separation for him.
Right.
You always think about the mask protecting the ones you love, and it does to a certain extent, but it also protects you from having everyone say, well, you're Luke Cage, why don't you solve this problem for me, The fact of the matter is, I think the reason Superman puts on the dang glasses is just so that someone will stop trying to ask him to fix problems. There was a great Jerry Seinfeld episode of Saturday Night Live, and I believe he's playing Superman. And, someone's like asking Superman, there was a garbage strike last week. Why didn't you just collect all the garbage with your super speed and throw all that garbage into the sun? Why are we having to deal with this world when you have superpowers and you don't fix everything? And I think this is the struggle that Luke is going through right now. He is trying to find out how he can use this immense power for good. And I think what we're learning is the journey is that you can use immense power for good, but it may not always be obvious what the best good is for that immense power. On that note, Mozz, how can people reach out to you, find you, touch you if they'd like to?
They can reach out to me via email or on Facebook. Mozz Manzoor at gmail.com. That's MOZZ MANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way the way our Mozz and Poz once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on the Twitters as I live tweet Cloak and Dagger, which, hey, by the time you hear this, might be back on the air. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and goodness knows what else at Charlie Esser. That's CHARLIE ESSER. Look for the two E's, ding, in the middle for quality. Oh, sweet Christmas, brothers and sisters. Our show is at an end, but come on back, because there's more trouble in Harlem next week. Good night.